The story is set in 1980s Boston, where a mafia don named Frank is introduced. He visits a diner to collect protection money. There he notices a young boy named Colin, who he knows has lost his parents. Frank takes Colin outside, buys him gifts, and tells him that if he ever needs anything, he should come to him.
You like comic books? You come by L Street. You know where I am on L Street.
In reality, this is Frank's way of slowly drawing vulnerable kids into his influence. Colin later returns to Frank again. Frank tells him to always live life on his own terms. He promises to teach him how to take control of the world around him. Years pass, and Colin is now seen training at a police academy. Frank has pushed him into this path so he can have someone inside the police department to feed him information from within. Colin must still pass an interview to become a sergeant. At the academy, there is another student named Billy who also passes his exams. Both of them are called for interviews. Colin goes first and is asked several questions, but the interviewers behave in a rude and disrespectful manner. Then Billy's turn comes. During his interview, one officer points out that Billy's family background includes several criminals. He also mentions that Billy lives in Frank's territory and assumes he is connected to them. Billy becomes angry hearing this. The interviewers then tell Billy that they cannot make him a sergeant, but they can offer him a role as an undercover officer. They explain that he will work as a secret agent, but first he must go to jail so that criminals believe he was not accepted into the police force and trust his cover story.
Why are you pretending to be a cop? Fucking families dying in the Southeast projects like...
Do you want to be a cop, or do you want to appear to be a cop?
Meanwhile, Colin is shown being made a sergeant and is assigned to work with the FBI. The FBI has Frank at the top of their most wanted list and is determined to catch him. Billy, on the other hand, is released from jail. After his release, his cousin meets him, and together they begin dealing drugs. However, Billy still wants to get close to Frank's organization. With his cousin's help, he goes to meet Frank's men. There, Billy intentionally attacks one of Frank's associates. It looks like he is about to kill him, but Frank's right-hand man intervenes and stops him. Billy is spared because his uncle had once worked for Frank's group and even gave his life for them. Frank's man warns Billy not to do any illegal activities in their territory and tells him to leave. Billy obeys and walks away.
Hey, fuckhead, it's Jackie's nephew. Make one more drug deal, I'll cut your fucking nuts off. You understand that?
On the other side, Colin is seen in an FBI meeting. The FBI is determined to capture Frank at any cost, especially because he has stolen microprocessors that he plans to sell to China. Police officers are assigned to track him down, but Colin secretly calls Frank and informs him about their movements, allowing Frank to escape. Later, in an elevator, Colin meets a doctor who is a psychiatrist. Her name is Madeline. The moment Colin sees her, he becomes deeply impressed and quickly asks her out for dinner. The two meet and have dinner together, where Madeline also feels strongly drawn to him and enjoys his company. On the other side, Billy is in a store when two Italian gangsters arrive and start harassing the shopkeeper. Billy loses control and brutally beats both of them, forcing them to flee. During the fight, his hand gets fractured, so he gets it plastered and later goes to a bar. There, Frank appears in front of him. Frank asks if Billy knows him. Billy says no. Frank then takes Billy aside and tells him that the two men he attacked were Italian gangsters and they will likely come back to kill him. However, Frank also praises him, saying he did a good thing because those men were interfering in his business. Frank reveals that he knew Billy's father, who never joined their group and therefore never made money.
I knew your father.
You know he's dead?
I just said he had a fucking problem.
Then Frank forcefully removes Billy's hand plaster and asks if he is still working for the police. Billy denies it. Frank already knows about his police training and begins psychologically pressuring him by squeezing his injured hand, causing him intense pain. Under pressure, Billy insists he is not working for the police. He says that the police sent him to jail, so he hates them. Frank then gives him money and tells him to get his hand treated again. At the same time, Frank secretly has the two Italian gangsters killed, so they do not attack Billy again. This convinces Frank that Billy can be trusted, so he allows him to join his gang, warning him that if he ever betrays them, he will be killed.
Maybe we could work something out.
Busto, I'd like to squeeze some fucking money out of it.
Billy is wearing a chain with a hidden microphone, which allows the captain and Sergeant Dignam, whom he reports, to hear everything. He becomes extremely nervous, realizing that if Frank discovers the microphone, he will be killed immediately. After the meeting, he calls them and tells them he will no longer wear any recording device and will instead pass information only through phone calls. Meanwhile, Colin creates a new team within the police department to prove his loyalty and honesty to capture Frank. He explains that someone in their old team was working for Frank and leaking information, which is why Frank always escaped. That is why he has formed a new group. On Frank's side, Billy is taken to different places where Frank carries out multiple killings. Watching innocent people die in front of him deeply disturbs Billy. He cannot handle the violence, and it begins to mentally affect him. He goes to Dr. Madeline, the psychiatrist, and tells her everything about his situation and how he has to live alongside a killer while hiding his fear.
You sit there, a mass murderer.
Madeline understands his mental state and prescribes him medication to help stabilize him. After this, Billy meets the captain and Sergeant Dignam again and tells them he cannot continue living this double life. He explains that he has been with Frank for a year and has already passed on several pieces of information, yet Frank still has not been caught. The officers tell him that someone inside their department is working for Frank, which is why he keeps escaping.
The guy fucking murders somebody and you don't fucking take him.
We are building a case, and it takes time.
Meanwhile, Billy continues meeting Madeline frequently and eventually invites her to dinner. Over time, they both develop a close friendship. On the other side, it is revealed that Frank is planning to quickly finalize a microprocessor deal with China. The FBI becomes aware of this operation and plans to arrest him during the deal. Colin immediately contacts Frank and warns him that the FBI knows about his upcoming transaction and that someone in his group is leaking information. After hearing this, Frank changes the location of the deal, which allows him to escape the FBI's trap. The sergeant and captain become extremely frustrated as their plan fails again. Frank later visits Billy and tells him that he suspects he is working for the police. Hearing this, Billy deliberately reacts with anger and warns Frank that he will kill him if he ever says that again. Frank becomes uncertain and cannot figure out whether Billy is telling the truth or lying. The next day, Frank returns and tells Billy that he is forming a new group and that Billy will not be part of it. This unsettles Billy, and he immediately contacts the captain to inform him that Frank has started suspecting him. Meanwhile, Frank calls Colin and asks if there is any truth that he is forming a new group. Colin denies it completely. Frank had only shared this information with Billy, so if it had reached the FBI, he would have known Billy was the mole. However, the FBI has not received this information yet, so Billy's identity remains safe. Colin is now mentally exhausted, trapped between Frank and the FBI. He feels increasingly stressed and frequently visits Dr. Madeline. Over time, they grow closer, and their relationship becomes more personal and emotionally intimate. Colin even suggests that they may need to leave everything behind one day. At the same time, Frank focuses on identifying the person leaking information to the FBI. Billy contacts the captain and asks to meet him. The captain agrees and goes to meet him in a metro train. However, Billy becomes suspicious, sensing that he is being followed. Since they are speaking on the phone during this time, Billy changes the meeting location to a building and instructs the captain to meet him there instead. The captain arrives at the location, unaware that Colin's men, who are also police officers working under him, are following him. Colin had instructed them to suspect that the captain might be working for Frank, so they continue tracking him. The captain eventually moves to a rooftop. At the same time, Billy receives a call from one of Frank's men, who gives him a location and tells him to hurry, as the person leaking information about Frank to the FBI is expected to arrive there soon. On the rooftop, Billy and the captain meet. Billy says he is tired of this work and no longer wants to remain an undercover agent. He asks to be taken out of this situation. The captain tells him that they are working on it. Suddenly, they realize that Frank's men have arrived. Both of them quickly separate to avoid being seen. Billy moves downstairs, but at that moment, someone throws the captain down from above, creating chaos as the situation takes a dangerous turn. It is Frank's men who carry out the attack. Below the building, there are police officers in a car who have been following the captain. When they see that someone has pushed the captain from the rooftop and killed him, they immediately get out of the car and start firing at Frank's men. One of the bullets hits the man who had called Billy earlier. He is badly injured, and his companions quickly take him away from the scene. On the other side, Colin is shown with the captain's phone. Sergeant Dignam confronts him and asks why he sent his men after the captain. He accuses Colin of being the informant and suddenly attacks him. Other officers step in and stop the fight. After this incident, Sergeant Dignam resigns from his position. Colin now has the captain's computer, which contains information about the informant inside Frank's group, meaning Billy. However, he does not have the password to access the data. He also has the captain's phone with him. Meanwhile, Billy is shown with the injured man who was shot earlier. The man tells him that he had called him to a different location, so how did he end up at the same place where the captain and the FBI informant were present?
When I called you, gave you the wrong address, but you showed up at the right one, didn't you?
I mean, why didn't tell nobody?
Huh?
Before he can reveal anything further to Frank, he dies from his injuries. This leaves Billy deeply disturbed. Feeling overwhelmed, Billy once again goes to meet Madeline. She tells him that she is going to get married soon and can no longer continue seeing him. It is revealed that they had been involved in a physical and emotional relationship and had grown very close. but now she is choosing to marry Colin. Billy leaves after hearing this. Meanwhile, Colin has the captain's phone and redials the last number dialed from it. The call goes to Billy. When Billy sees that the captain's phone is calling him, he immediately realizes something is wrong because he knows the captain is dead. He answers the call but says nothing. Colin also remains silent on the other end. For a moment, both of them simply listen to each other without speaking. Then Billy disconnects the call. Colin calls again and tells Billy that he has now taken over the captain's case, and he can pass any information to him. Billy refuses outright and says that he only wants to speak with the sergeant. Colin tells him that the sergeant is on leave.
Who are you?
I'm taking over Queenan's unit.
Talk to Dignam to confirm it.
He's on a leave of absence. He's very upset.
After hearing this, Billy disconnects the call again. Colin becomes determined to find out, at any cost, who in Frank's group has been leaking information to the FBI. He starts digging through classified FBI files, and while going through them, he comes across a file containing Frank's photograph. After seeing it, he realizes something shocking. Frank himself is also working with the FBI and has been feeding them information. He is left confused and shaken, unable to understand what is really going on. Now he also feels personally at risk because through Frank, the FBI could discover that Colin himself is a mole inside the police department. In other words, he is also betraying his own organization. Colin goes to the FBI office, where he learns that they are planning to catch Frank that very night, as they no longer need him. The FBI reaches the location where Frank is about to complete a deal and opens fire on him. Frank manages to escape and flees to a warehouse where Colin also arrives. Colin confronts Frank, telling him that he has been betrayed and that Frank has always been working with the FBI. He demands to know why he was never told the truth. Frank calmly explains that he only gave the FBI information about people who were not useful to him. Those who were no longer important were exposed, and the FBI eliminated them. Frank loses his temper and is about to shoot Colin, but before he can, Colin shoots him first, killing him. After Frank's death, the FBI declares Colin a hero for eliminating him. Billy comes to meet Colin, and at this point, Colin realizes that Billy is the informant who had been working inside Frank's group and passing information to the FBI. Colin asks for Billy's password. Billy gives it to him, allowing Colin to access his confidential file. Colin reviews all the information stored in the system. When he leaves to get some files, Billy notices an envelope on Colin's desk labeled Citizens. He recognizes it as the same kind of envelope Frank had once given to the man working for him inside the FBI. At that moment, Billy understands the truth. Colin is actually the one who has been inside the FBI while secretly feeding information to Frank. He realizes that his own life is now in danger as well, so he runs away from there. When Colin returns to the room where Billy was, he finds it empty. He immediately realizes that Billy has figured out the truth about him. To protect himself, Colin deletes Billy's file from the computer so that no one can ever trace that he worked for the FBI. From that moment on, Billy is considered a criminal in the eyes of the FBI. Meanwhile, Billy goes to meet Madeline and hands her an envelope. He tells her that if anything happens to him, she should open it. After saying this, he leaves.
I've got to give you something. You open this if something happens to me or only person I can trust, all right?
Later, Madeline goes to Colin and tells him that she is going to become the mother of his child. Colin is very happy to hear this. However, Madeline then receives an email in her inbox that was sent by Billy. She becomes anxious, thinking that Billy may have exposed her relationship with Colin to him. She opens the envelope Billy had given her and finds a CD inside. When she plays it, she hears recorded conversations between Colin and Frank. It turns out Frank used to secretly record all their discussions. Billy somehow obtained those recordings and sent them, but Madeline listens to them before Colin does. After hearing the truth, she realizes that Colin is a corrupt man. She quietly leaves. Now Billy calls Colin and asks him to meet at the same rooftop where the captain was killed. When Colin arrives, Billy points a gun at him and says he will expose everything to the police and FBI. Colin replies that no one will believe him. At that moment, another officer arrives who had been with Billy in the academy. He recognizes Billy but does not trust what he is saying. In a tense moment, Billy forces Colin into the elevator at gunpoint. When the elevator reaches the ground floor and the door opens, another police officer is waiting there, one of Colin's allies. That officer immediately shoots Billy, killing him. The officer who came down with Billy from the academy is still confused, unsure who was telling the truth between Billy and Colin. Before he can react, he is also killed. The officer who shot Billy then tells Colin that he himself had also once worked for Frank. He says that both of them are on the same side and that he is the only police officer who knows Colin's truth. Hearing this, Colin immediately shoots him to protect himself. After this, Colin gives his official statement to the FBI. He carefully constructs a false story, claiming that Billy was actually his man. He says that although Billy appeared to be working for Frank, he was secretly an undercover agent who used to pass all the important information to him. Colin further explains that the officer who shot Billy was actually one of Frank's men, which is why he had to kill him in response. With this manipulation, Colin successfully misleads the FBI once again and is seen as a hero in their eyes. Madeline is also present there, her eyes filled with tears because she now knows the truth about Colin. Colin tries to speak to her, but she refuses to respond and walks away without saying a word. Later, Colin returns home where Sergeant Dignam, who had resigned earlier, is waiting for him. He already knows the full truth about Colin. Without hesitation, he shoots Colin and then leaves the scene. In the end, Colin receives the consequences of his actions. The story concludes with everyone getting what their choices lead them to, bringing the narrative to a dark and final close.